Hey, welcome back to the Positive Podcast. Glad you're tuning in. The host, Jeremy Todd, back and better than ever. I know. I haven't been doing the episodes enough or consistent enough. And, like I always talk about this in the show, I talk about seasons of life. And I've talked about seasons of life for years. I think I'm creeping up on 5 years for the podcast. Holy shit. It'll be 5 years, I think February 1st. So, 4 years and what is that, 6 months, 7 months, whatever it is. But I've talked about seasons of life. And this is a season of life that I'm in, the show's in. And I was just talking to my guest, Jerry Tussle. We're going to bring him in just a second. But the exponential growth of the podcast and how much it's really taken off. And I think I mentioned this too on the show that I just can't give it up yet because the lives that it's changing. And I shared an email last time on one of the last episodes about someone that's going through some really, really tough times. And man, this is the impact of the show, and through vulnerability and through just being real and upfront. And that's what makes the show successful. It's just me telling you when my life sucks, what's going on and the interesting parts of it. And this is an interesting part. It's a season of my life, but I'm not going to stop the show. So that's just a prerequisite for today's show. But anyways, my buddy Jerry Tussle's coming on the show. Let's get Jerry in here. Jerry is the owner and founder of Top Dog Business Coaching, the man, the myth, the legend. Now, I met Jerry years ago when we worked together at Southwestern Consulting, and we were just talking. Hey, we met a lot of great people there, and it's funny how we've kept these relationships going. Now, Jerry, if you're a longtime listener, he was on the show years ago, but today I'm gonna act like he's never been on the show because I'm gonna ask him some questions that. I mean, I was probably drinking when last time we had you on the show. I don't remember anything anyway, so it's good. It'd be it's like deja vu Groundhog Day. So, Jerry, Welcome to the show, my friend.
Good to be here, Jeremy. Thanks for everything you do, by the way. Been catching up on your shows. So much good stuff out there. Love the positive side.
I appreciate it, my friend.
You got it.
Jerry, you're crushing shit, man. I mean, you're doing what you were made to do. But I thought about this coming into the show today. You are like so many people out there that are scared to take the chance, are scared to take the risk. That was you, right? I mean, that 100%. And I'm curious, like, if you're talking to someone out there that may be in a job that is whatever the job that is, and I always prototypically put the old 9-to-5 job, and you see people passing you by and taking these chances and taking these risks, but you were in that boat. What changed? What was the mindset like? Walk through the fear factor of that too, but how did you go through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think first of all, we all have that fear thing, come up in no matter what we're doing. And I think what people have to do is really just kind of dig in a little bit and ask themselves, what am I really fearful of? What's really the thing that I'm scared of right now? And if they really dig in, I like to talk about faith and failure. Now, faith, I actually looked up the definition of faith, because for some people it's a God faith, and that's awesome. And for some people there's no connection to God. So it can be complete definition is complete trust or confidence in someone or something, right? So when you're going through going through something and having to make a decision and thinking about going through that fear to something new, to your question, it's understanding that you have to exercise this muscle that's faith. You have to exercise that. But the cool thing is we've all done something in our past where we had to walk in faith. There's no, we all had faith that if you drive a car that you were not going to get in an accident going to work that day, right? You had to have faith that you weren't going to do that. You had to have faith that the person you met was the right person, right? That maybe you're married to. You had to have, we walk in faith all the time, but we don't realize it. So why is this thing that we're wanting to do any different? Why can't we walk in faith and create this? For me, it was starting Top Dog, right? There was a lot of fear around it. Crazy thing is I've always wanted to start my own thing and have my own business since I was probably about 21, 22, right out of college, and attempted different things, but never really went full-time in my own thing, non-1099. Finally happened about 2 months, 3 months before I turned 50. I just turned 50 in July. Yeah, and so, talk about waiting a long time. That's a while to wait until you start your own thing. Let me ask
you this. Were you ready? I mean, were you ready? Because that's interesting that you say that, because there's so many people. I'm 43, and there's people that are 48, 60. Some people are 23, and it's like, I don't know if it's like, well, when am I going to make this decision? It's like you were ready at 50 to make the decision. You may not have been ready at 40 or a 30 or a 20 or 25 or 30, whatever the age is, you just may have not been ready. And it's your path, which is beautiful. Our paths are all different. So if you're listening to this, I mean, your path is completely different than Jerry's. You may be 65 and starting, but I love that you mentioned that because you've got so much more life to live. And it's like your life is just now taking off.
Yeah. I mean, I think to answer one of the questions there, it was, I learned a long time ago, and I think I keep getting reminded of it, that there are no guarantees in life. There are no guarantees that we're going to, in actual living, there's no guarantees that something's going to work out. There's no guarantees that our employer is going to follow through with what they say. There are no guarantees necessarily anything, only in what we can control, right? So I think it's important to realize that we have to do what we're going to do. If it's going to be, it's going to be up to us to make that decision. Your question was about, was I ready? I would say in some aspects, absolutely yes. In some aspects, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Were you ready to have kids when you had kids?
No, but me, no, absolutely not. I mean, we were, I slipped one past the goalie and hey, it was on, right? I mean, there's no turning back, but it's
game on Donkey Kong.
Well, it makes a lot of sense because are you ever truly 100% ready? It's like, if you're waiting for that day to be 100% ready, you might as well, I mean, forget about it, because you're never going to be 100% ready. It's like, you just got to be 100% tired of the shit that you keep selling yourself, like 100% tired of your shit. And when you're 100% tired of your shit and you're like, you know what, damn it, today's the day, I'm out of here.
You got it. And I did reach out to, including yourself, a few people that I trusted who had gone before me, right? Who had at that point left the company I was with and gone before me out on their own. And was it nerve-wracking? Absolutely. Was it scary? Absolutely. Had I walked in faith before in my life and done something that I had to take a risk? Absolutely. I had to lean on that faith and realize that if I fail, I'm going to learn stuff. It's going to be awesome. And I'm going to choose to have a freaking good attitude and a positive mindset and go through this. So in worst case, if I fail, I can go find another job. That's what I told myself.
Sure.
So, yeah. And then go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, can you imagine not making that decision now? So would a failure be actually failing, or is it a failure not actually trying? I think that's a failure, like not even giving yourself a chance. You fail before you even get out the door. You got to give yourself a chance to fail in the big time, because if you never take the chance, you actually fail. If that makes any sense at all.
100%. I would agree. If I heard you right, it's like if you don't even take the shot, that's actually, in my opinion, more so failure than taking a shot and not making it. And the guarantee is you will make steps in the right direction, even if you fail, no matter what it is. Just by looking at it, you'll actually make steps. Watching a business, for example, you will make steps and understand what to do and what not to do. Maybe in social media, you will make steps and learn what to do and what not to do with clients and retaining clients. You're going to learn along the way, and you have to look at it as a learning opportunity to build on.
You know, it's funny. I was just, while you're talking there, I'm thinking about the last time that I actually saw you was in Malibu, you and me in Malibu on the beach having breakfast.
Yeah.
Looking at all the homeless people walk by. It was great, wasn't it? It was great. I mean, it was
great
shit I've ever seen in my life. But you and I were having breakfast. People were trying to steal our scraps and steal money and get our, I mean, it was out of control up there. But that was the last time I saw you. But if you take a snapshot of that in time, where we were in our lives, like, is this going to work? Where are we going? We're not making any money. What am I going to do? All the questions, yet we continue to go through it. We continue to take chances and continue the rock and roll. Now you mentioned faith, and I'm going to tie this into the next question. And then I'm going to bring up the coaching as well, because I think that's important what you're doing now. But for people that didn't hear the show before, you have actually had cancer, and we've talked about this cancer in your show. You had foot cancer, right?
I had melanoma that was actually on my heel, believe it or not, which is it wasn't due to sun exposure, basically, but it was a melanoma, which is the type of skin cancer that kills more people.
I don't know if I asked you this, but I like asking guests this, and I value your opinion, and I know you're, and I don't know anything, but I would have, based on my recollection of our conversations, you have a strong faith in God.
Mhm.
What do you think? Number one, and I like to always ask this question. Number one, is God real? What does God look like? Does God, when you die, do you go up and shake God's hand at the pearly gates? Do you walk up and say, "Hey, hey, you already know who I am"? I mean, come on, I'm introducing myself to you, but the first time I ever met you, but you've known me forever. But hey, I'm Jerry. I know you're God. How you doing? Is there an actual God being? What does that look like to you? And what does that mean when you talk about faith and taking chances and risk in your life?
Boy, we went straight from 10,000 foot level to 60,000
To
foot
heaven.
level, brother.
To
Love
heaven,
it.
right?
No, we got it. We're good. So is there a God? 100% I believe there is a God. I think, what is the first, can you repeat a couple of questions? It was, what, is there a God?
Is there a God? What does God
to
look
me?
like? What is that?
Right.
Yeah. What is that being, that person? When you pass away and
Mhm.
you see your God, what does that visual representation look like? And whatever that is, when you visualize that representation, is that who you see daily in your life? And how does that pull through your faith? Taking, like, when you take risks, is that faith, is that image, is that being there with you when you take these risks? Because I think, for me, I'm agnostic at best. And I think that's, I think it would make people more comfortable to feel, because this is a tricky subject and I don't really want to go down this road too far, but
Right.
I think people use religion and faith sometimes as a crutch sometimes. And I think they just use it as something to, when they don't know the answer, they just say, well, it's because of God or it's because of faith. But I think that's a little bit different with you, because I know you well, and I know you would never do that in vain. But I'm just curious with you, when you talk about taking risk and what this visualization is with God, does that make you feel more comfortable taking risk? Do you know that your God is there at all times? Do you know? I mean, I guess just talk about that in generality.
I think it does. It helps you take risks. I think it helps you mitigate some of the fears. And I'm a believer that if it's God faith or faith in oneself or faith in a mentor, all that to me comes back to displaying faith and moving forward with your own purpose and what you were supposed to be doing in this world, right? Like, and as far as what it's like, I think part of what faith in God is an expectation we put upon ourselves, right? So I think it's an expectation that we live the life that we're supposed to live, that we treat people the way we're supposed to treat people, that we help our kids raise our kids the way we're supposed to raise our kids, that, all of those expectations are a big part of it. I think another thing when it comes to God, it's values, right? I think it helps people with their own personal values. And that's why I say, if someone's agnostic, I coach people and I work with people who are super strong in their faith as a Christian. I work with people that are a different faith, completely different faith. I work with people that are agnostic. I work with all different types. And we talk about this topic of faith because they can still relate to me when it comes to faith in oneself, faith in someone else, faith in others, faith in that they have the proper connections to get them to where they want to go. I think a lot of it, though, is holding true to one's beliefs and living up to the expectation. That's where I think it can come back to faith in oneself, as I have high expectations of myself, right? And I think when you have higher expectations, you have a better chance of living up to those. Let me take it to sports. I think one thing that changed for the Chicago Cubs, their fans and their ownership had higher expectations for them. And so therefore it helped them live into those expectations, and they made it to the playoffs. I think you could look at any teams, successful marriages. It all comes back to, a lot of it is, do we have this visual, this image of achievement and higher level achievement? It doesn't matter what. And if you have that and you hold true to it, you're going to then live into that a little bit more.
Let me ask you this. You brought this up, and as you were talking, I was writing this down. Let me put this down too before I forget it. you brought up living up to your own expectations. And I think that is critical. I've never really talked about that on the show, but if I look at myself living up to my own expectations, there's always a fear that I won't do that. When I put my goals out there, sometimes my goals are so big and they're huge expectations, but I never want to let myself down. It's kind of like when it goes back to like the imposter syndrome, that I don't truly believe that I am and I can't even say it because I can't relate to it, but I'll say it just for the sake of the show. But I don't believe that I'm as talented as I may be. I think there's a lot of self-doubt. I don't think I can. I think my expectations for myself, and maybe it's based on my past, maybe it's based on how I grew up, maybe it's based on my short stature, maybe it's based on a million different things, but that is extremely real I bet for a lot of people out there living up to your expectations, because man, I don't know if that's even for me. I don't know if it's possible. So as a coach, I mean, you're top dog business coaching, you're coaching some of the most successful people around the world. What do you tell a client? And if I'm your client, and I'm being brutally honest with you too, man, I this is something I live in, man. Like it's daily. Like I'll get a report and I don't know how to read it. And I don't know how to find the information. I'm like, shit. I mean, these guys are going to think I'm a dick and I can't figure this out. Why am I even in this position? Because I don't deserve this position, because I'm just not smart enough to earn this. And I think that holds people back when we talk. If we go back, taking those risks and taking those steps, it seems like in my life, there's something like this 2-part of my life where I just say yes to every opportunity. I always just say yes. And then imposter syndrome. I think I bullshit my way through a lot of things. But I don't know if it's real. Like I'm waiting for like tomorrow. If I go into work and they figure me out, they're like, bro, who in the hell are you? And how in the hell did you get in this office? Because you're not smart enough and you don't deserve to be here. But that is a real thing that I struggle with every single day.
Yeah. I think step one is you define expectations. You dig in. If I was your coach, I would say, let's slow down for a second. First of all, you've coached salespeople big time that have made 6-7 figures, maybe 8. I don't know, but you've had massive success in that. Let's talk about what you've actually done here. It's not like you're just a kid here starting out. You've had massive success as a coach, right? You've had massive success as a podcaster compared to a lot, right? So the first thing is, let's define expectations. So that it is possible to set yourself up for failure if you're from the outgo setting up those expectations falsely. Like, let's set some actual expectations and define those and then clarify those, right? So the big first one would be setting the right expectations, or setting I don't want to say realistic, because I think that can be self-limiting, but I would say defining to yourself what those expectations are, right? Like, what does success look like? How will we know if we're successful? Digging into that a little bit more.
Okay. That makes sense. Because I think, subconsciously I'm trying to do this in my own head as well as outside looking in by setting expectations. If I look at my board over here, it's funny you say that, because on my big, huge whiteboard in my office, it says, I literally wrote this down 6 weeks ago, probably 8 weeks ago. It says 2 years, ? Direction in my life. And then I have this arrow pointing over to general manager, GM ? Am I even going to be in the car biz in 2 years? So this is a 2 years expectation. And then there's another arrow that says just me or with someone else, or solo biz. And I wrote these things down, and it's amazing how these things they just happen. And it's bizarre. It's bizarre and it's weird. And I wrote on here, visualize and actually do this. So when you're talking about setting expectations, and I visualize them, I actually wrote them on my board. Some people say it's woo. Some people say it's bullshit. Some people just say it's pure luck, whatever the case is. But that's real shit, bro. I mean, I set those expectations and put them on the board, and the shit happened.
Yeah. I mean, that's vision right there. That's having vision and fulfilling it.
It's weird.
It's crazy. It's crazy good.
It is crazy, but I think that holds a lot of people back, and I think that's
Yeah.
a great point for people that are, before they quit their job, before they go for this goal or this dream and try and go to the next level. Maybe that's what they need to do to help overcome that fear, is to set expectations. I like, there's an exercise, like Angie Moss. Angie Moss used to take me through this, and she would just say, okay, I would say, well, what if I lose my job? She's like, okay, then what would you do? Well, I'd probably find another one. Then what you would do? Well, what would you do? And she would just go through this exercise over and over and over,
Right.
where I would just be like, okay, I would figure it out, because that's exactly what you do, because we get so limited and we like hit a wall and we're like, I'm done. Yeah. But in reality, if we just keep asking questions, typically those answers come to us.
Absolutely. And one thing you talked about when you said, we're talking about like the imposter syndrome, and then, going and how to set expectations. And I set them sometimes too high. I think one thing trap people fall into is they just start chasing rabbits, right? And they don't realize that their mind is running, chasing rabbits down these rabbit holes of stuff that they don't even need to worry about right now. They just need to kind of scale back and slow down. And I think when people are wanting to, in my case, was start my own business. It could be anything though. It's slow down, find a mentor, find people that have gone before you. Write down like where I am today, right? Write down where I want to be, but then also start walking through what that might look like, and get a mentor to help you kind of walk through that and have some a little bit of understanding of what it's going to take. That's one thing I did, is I asked a lot of questions to people that had gone before me in my footsteps. I think I've done that most of my life. I had the benefit of being the youngest of 6 kids. So all my siblings, they went into college before me. Some of them, they had kids at a young age. They did all this stuff before me. Another thing I wanted to hit on when you mentioned just, going into something and setting high expectations for oneself. For me, I didn't have as much of a problem as setting too high of expectation. It was comparing myself to others. And that's one thing that when I'd hit about 40, age 40, I finally gave that up and said, you know what? Comparing myself to a sibling or to who's gone before me, or to someone else who you see on social media who's, appears to be doing amazing, in social media. Let's not put too much weight into that. It's totally unfair to them. It's also unfair to you. It's learning to run your own race also. Yeah. So comparison can be okay to help set yourself up with a framework. But when you start feeling down on yourself because of comparing yourself to someone else, that's where you gotta.
It's that old quote, comparison is a thief of joy. And it's so right. And, the acronym for fear, false evidence appearing real. Is we get scared of things that actually never, ever happen. And, and if I plug myself into that same situation, my fear of going in there tomorrow and then them saying, all right, Jeremy, we know you're a fraud. In reality, that's not going to happen. Right. But it feels like it is sometimes. I mean, it's false evidence, and it actually appears real. Yeah. But I guess that's one thing I would tell everybody out there listening to the show, that sometimes you just have to jump. You just got to figure it out, take a chance, and allow life to happen to you, because
you got it.
You never give yourself a chance, you'll never get out the door. So that's extremely important. Jerry, we're gonna tell everybody where we can find you again here towards the end of the show, but we've got to get into our questions. I love these questions from John Maxwell. And then you asked them before, you answered them before. Hopefully you forgot all the answers, and hopefully you forgot the questions, because that'll make it a lot much more interesting. But again, once again, we're talking to Jerry Tussle, CEO, founder, Top Dog Business Coaching, and topdogbusinesscoaching.com. Make sure to reach out to him and find him everywhere on social media. Friend him as well. Me and Jerry are BFFs, and I've even seen him in probably 3 years, which is that's crazy how time, maybe 4 years. Shit. Time flies, bro. But Jerry Tussle, question number 1 from John Maxwell's book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions, is question number 1. What is the greatest lesson you've ever learned?
I would say greatest lesson I've ever learned is, I think I mentioned it, but there are no guarantees in life. And so take action when you can.
Yeah. And that's so real, because there's no guarantees what you're doing in life will stay the way it is. I mean, that's reality too. Shit, with people getting laid off and businesses closing and people getting sick and dying and there's all kinds of crazy shit out there. You just never know Yeah, I could walk out of here and get hit by a bus tonight. Now, I hope I don't, but in reality, if that's it's a possibility, maybe slim, but it's a possibility. I want to make sure that I live life to the fullest every single day. Jerry,
Yeah.
question number 2 is, what are you learning now?
So I'm actually reading a book, if you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I am familiar with Dr.
Yeah.
Joe
So I'm reading
Dispenza.
a book on becoming supernatural, which
Supernatural, yeah.
I am learning how to meditate. And I don't know to what degree, if I'll go to the degrees that he does in that book, but it's fascinating. I'm not a paid spokesperson for his book,
Yeah.
but I think there's a lot to learn there. And I think it does a lot of good in times like we're in today's world, to whether it's yoga or working out or meditation, to take time for yourself. So that's what I'm learning now, is to learning how to meditate at a slow pace.
Meditation for me, and it's funny. The first time I heard that book was from another one of my BFFs, Elise Archer. Elise, she recommended that book about 3 years ago, and I've read most of it, but not all of it.
Mhm.
But one of the things, obviously, I've taken out of it, and one of the things I've really worked hard on is meditating. I
Yeah.
started really meditating, and it made a lot of sense when I read the book 10% Happier by Dan Harris. If you haven't read that book, you've got to read. I mean, it is so good. And an audiobook is the best, because if you remember, you know who Dan Harris is?
I don't actually.
He was on
I'm gonna read that.
ABC News. Like, he was
Okay.
like a reporter on ABC News, and he did all kinds of stuff, but he's got a great TV voice. But he
Wow.
was at the absolute peak of his game. And then he was live one day, and he just had a breakdown. He just started gibbering on live TV in front of, it was like 2.7 million people, just gibbering, had
Wow.
nothing, couldn't say anything, and just basically lost his mind.
Hmm.
And started meditating. And then there's a long story about that, but I meditate not as much as I'd like. I meditate when I have a lot on my mind, when I can't sleep, when I'm stressed out. I meditate laying in bed, and I really, my form of meditation is literally the same way every time. I remember, it's like I hit a roadblock, and I'm like, okay, something's got to change. And then I just immediately start breathing through my nose, out through my mouth, and I slow everything down. I start concentrating on my chest and my stomach, moving up and down with my breaths. I can feel energy going from the top of my head through, I could feel it leaving my fingertips, through my legs, through my toes, and I could feel the energy just leaving my body. And as I do that, and as I breathe, things come and go in my mind, ideas, the stresses, the next week at work, what the cat's doing, all these things come and go in my mind. I just let them come and go, and I continue to focus on my breathing. And there'll be a time where my breathing, where within maybe a 30-second, or maybe sometimes it's 5 minutes, where I will just zone completely out, and it's bizarre. And then when I snap out of it, I feel like I slept for like 4 hours.
Wow.
It's amazing, and it's helped me so many times in the recent, because I've been so stressed out with a lot of the things that I'm going on in my life now, that man, having that ability to, and it's not, I would say it's a skill set, but it's just knowing breathing. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, that's,
Right.
for me, that's my meditation, is slowing everything down and breathing. There's a great book called Breath by I want to say Jim something. I'm going to butcher that one, but you can really look that one up too. That book is amazing as well, and talks about the power of breathing through your nose versus breathing through your mouth, and what it does for your health, your mind, your blood. I mean, it's just amazing. So a little bit of a rant there, but awesome. Meditation's huge. Question number 3 is, how has failure shaped your life?
Oh, buddy, that's a big one. We don't have enough time today.
That's another show, and we'll be back.
So failure has shaped my life. How has it shaped my life? So failure has shaped my life by learning, I would say, learning my true strengths. It has unveiled to me my true strengths to connect with others, in no matter what I'm doing. So on a higher level, that's what I would say.
Without the failure, would you still be able to identify your true strengths?
It'd be hard. I mean, there's a book, great book, and I'm not a spokesperson, but I use it in my business all the time. Strengths Finder. If you're taking Strengths Finder 2.0, you have to be a learner, by the way. I'm sure you're a learner. And
Oh my God, Jeff, I don't know anything, so I'm learning every day, brother. I don't
know. That's a strength 34, one of the 34 strengths. I'm sure if you took that assessment, learner is one of your strengths. But I mean, you can take, the scientific test to tell you what your strengths are, but I think it helps to fail your way through anything, because it's going to be a learning experience. Jim Rohn once said, you learn way more through failure than you ever do through success. Right.
And he's right.
I think that's absolutely right.
Question number 4 for Jerry Tusel, CEO, Top Dog Business Coaching. Jerry, who do you know that I should know?
Who do I know that you should know? I would say one would be, a lot of people that I know. I got to think about that one.
Hey, you know what? That's a blessing, because the people that we know that are mutual are just absolute rock stars.
Yeah.
God, it's great to be able to pull from knowledge from all these people that we've met through our old company that we worked with. But man, it's just made me so much better, so much stronger.
I would say my sister. You need to meet my sister, because she has a perspective of life, Joan. She has a perspective of life. And she's had a lot of success in her life, but she has a perspective, I think, that is similar to a coach that looks for the positive. I think that looks for, that takes things in stride. She's someone that takes some things in stride. I don't know why my sister popped up, but I would say my sister Joan.
What does your sister Joan mean to you?
The couple of words that I would describe her would be resilient. Would be she's just a person of strength. She's someone that when she sets her mind on a goal, forget it, it's going to be achieved.
Yeah.
And I don't think she's someone that I think would have the similar definition of failure as I would, where she looks at it as an opportunity to grow. Yeah. Have
you ever told her that?
I don't think so. I don't talk to her enough.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, I was thinking about that, with even my own relationships with my own family. When I asked you that, it was initially, you start talking about, I'm like, man, maybe I should do the same thing. And, tell my family.
Yeah.
I think it's a great exercise, right? I think, so often we wait too long, and then, I'm not trying to sound morbid or anything, but we never get the chance. And you hear the stories. Oh my God, I wish I never told them this, or never told this person that. And I would just be curious, and maybe an exercise to reach out to your sister. I'll tell you what, how about this? I'll put you on Front Street. You reach out to your sister.
You got it.
And you tell her this conversation that we had, and tell her what she means to you. And I'll reach out to my older brother, Mike.
Yeah.
Brother Mike. And chances are I would say it's 30% chance he listens to the show. He listens every once in a while, which is more than most of my relatives. But the same thing. I respect the shit out of him. Just a great role model, a great mentor. And I've never really told him that personally, and I don't know why. I can tell you this freely. I can tell all the thousands of listeners around the world. Oh yeah, but I can't have the conversation with my brother.
And I think of I have 5 siblings, I mentioned. So I think, and I talk to a handful of them, and just because life gets busy, right? There's no reason necessarily, but sure. I think which is terrible, a terrible excuse. But I think someone told me once, when you're thinking of someone, an old friend, family member, whatever, call them. Yeah. Just start making a rule. Like if you're driving home or something, and you have a moment, just call them and say hello. I mean, there's really no excuse for that anymore, especially going through times like COVID. I mean, I think it's important just to kind of reach out. And
I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to call Brother Mike on the way into work. And to be honest, hopefully he doesn't answer. So I can just leave a voicemail. And even if he answered, he's so cool. I could tell him anyways, but easy way out, leave a voicemail and tell him what he means. But it doesn't have to be a long conversation. And I've talked about this on the show. One of the most important things I've done is throughout my life is I've gone through my phone randomly and just called people and just tell them right up front, hey, I've only got 3 minutes for you, but you popped in my head and I'm calling you. So that way the conversation doesn't drag on for 3 hours. Mm-hmm. But you tell them up front, hey, I got 3 minutes for you. Hey, I got 3 minutes for you, but I just want to tell you what you mean to me.
That's
I,
cool.
yeah, because again, those conversations can turn into hours, and I don't have. And again, you're busy, I'm busy. I don't have hours to talk about this because then you go down memory lane and shit like that. But the impact that would have on that it has happened, has had on people's lives. I've done this. Your girl Tej taught me that a while ago to do that. And she related it towards like on Facebook or any kind of social media when you say when someone puts on there, hey, I need prayers, or hey, I'm going through a tough time, prayers needed, or something along. Instead of just commenting, I got your back, or thumbs up, or all that bullshit. Which again is important. I'm sure it's important.
Right.
But man, the impact that you have when you call. I'll use my buddy Ben Gleason as an example. Ben was on my show. I've known him my whole life.
Yeah.
And he put on this has probably been a year ago. He put on, hey, my mom is in the hospital. Send prayers. So I was like, I'm not gonna, for me, I'm agnostic. I'm not gonna send prayers. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and just pick up the phone and call them. And I call him up. Ben, I got 3 minutes for you. I just want to ask you how your mom's doing. And you could hear him crying through the phone without him even shedding. You could just feel the emotion that comes off of a phone call like that. And that's the impact that something so small can have. So if we relate this back to what we were talking about earlier in the show, taking these chances and not sitting on the sidelines and risking shit like this, in reality, it's kind of a chance and it's a little bit of risk. It's getting out of your comfort zone, but man, you're talking about an impact.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. I still remember it. I mean, that's an impact for me. So I look at that for me because it's an impact for me a year later. That's huge.
And we want people to do that for us. We should be reaching out to them. I believe that stuff comes back to you in different ways, right? So absolutely. To be encouraged, that's probably my number one thing. I've always said it. I said it at my wedding with my wife and I, is to be an encourager of others. That's probably one of my go-to purposes in life, is to be the encourager of others. Well, you can't be the encourager just on social media. You have to do.
Yeah, right.
To reach out and reach out and talk to them.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Question number 5 for Jerry Tusel. Jerry, what have you read that I should read?
All right. Well, how about The Noticer by Andy Andrews? You read that one?
I'm a huge fan of Andy Andrews with Traveler's Gift, I believe, correct? Yes.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite books of all time. That's the only book that
I'm looking behind me
that I've given away. I have not read that book. What's it called again?
The Noticer. And he has another one. It's the seven habits, I want to say, but I can actually look it up. But he's got probably 10 really amazing books.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
But you said The Noticer, is that what you said?
Dude, no, let me give you a different one. The 7 Decisions. That's the one I want you to. The 7 Decisions by Andy Andrews.
I don't think I've read that one.
Great one. And for those listeners out there, just as far as Andy Andrews goes, he writes his books in the form of a story, so they're really easy to kind of follow. Yeah, it's Understanding the Keys to Personal Success, the 7 Decisions.
Okay. I need, that was perfect timing. I need a good book like that, and I just read the one book and it's the best book I've ever. I mean, I love that book. The Traveler's Gift. It was one of the greatest books of all time, and I don't know why I haven't read any of his other books, but that's a great reminder. I am going to jump into that for sure. Question number 6 is, what have you done that I should do?
I will say you should, when travel allows, you should go to Dublin and go to the Guinness headquarters. Yes, brother.
I've been there. Yeah, absolutely. Boom. You know, what's funny? I went there by myself. I flew from here to Detroit to Dublin by myself with no reservations anywhere in the country. Then I arrived in Dublin at 7 a.m. Guinness opened up at 10, and I was there right when they opened. I was the first person to walk in the door, and I was beat ass tired, and I walked the whole place to the very top and had my Guinness at the top of the building. Yeah,
I have another one, but hopefully I didn't answer the same the last time I was on your show. The other thing I would say is my wife and I went to Fiji for our honeymoon, and we I can't remember the airport, but you fly into the main airport. We actually went to one of the islands on the southeast side, and we took a helicopter from the main airport to the island, and it was sunrise, actually, Fiji time. So seeing the sun come up while flying over Fiji, that was pretty cool. And our
Okay, I
pilot
haven't
was
done that.
about 12 years old. I think he looked like I was a little nervous. So I do remember it quite vividly.
I have not done that for sure. That sounds badass.
I had to
bro.
find something that maybe you didn't do.
Yeah, that sounds badass, man. I've never been to Fiji. I would love to go, and that's one of my things when and if and all this bullshit's over, I cannot wait because there's a lot of places I want to go, and I love traveling by myself. I would like to have one of my kids go with me, but you know, if I'm gonna go to Fiji, like I like going there by myself and just figuring shit out. Like when I went to Ireland, I had no reservations. All I had was a rental car. I didn't know where I was going. I'd never been there before. I didn't map anything out. I just showed up, and then I'm like, okay, now what? So I love putting myself in stressful situations like that because it allows me to figure stuff out in my life. And but that would be a dope ass trip to go to Fiji and do by myself. So
that's powerful, by the way, what you just said. Putting yourself in situations to force it's like a puzzle, right? Force yourself to find a way out. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it was terrifying at a lot of points. And but you know, looking back, I'll never forget. It was one of the best trips of my life. And you know, I always wondered, like, because I did that, what impact has that had on my life, and in what areas would my life be different if I didn't do that? What are some of the things that I figure out that subconsciously that have built different neural pathways in my head because I struggled and I tried to figure that out? What neural pathways in my head have been built because of that experience that allow me to do the things that I do now and be successful at them? I don't know, but I mean, there's got to be something there, right?
Fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, it's bizarre, but I've thought about that a lot, and there's got to be something there for sure.
Absolutely.
Question number 7, Jerry, we're almost out of here, buddy. How can I add value to you?
You know, I would say just keep doing what you're doing. You're touching lives, man. I would say the only thing I would say is read more of I know your listeners send you amazing stories, personal overcoming things. I think we were talking about it before the show. And read those, because I think it's good to fill our minds with the impact we're having out there. If you listen to, I think it was Huberman Labs, he's been on the My Let podcast. He talks about, it might have been Dispenza actually on Ed My Let podcast, making sure we give ourselves dopamine, basically. I think reading our own testimonials as coaches or as a podcaster like yourself is absolutely critical. It's little ways that you need to share the success of your listeners. So that's what I would tell you.
That is a great bit of advice, because if I take that into what I'm doing now in the automobile industry, I can have my own salespeople, and this is why you're such a great coach, have them read their own customer reviews, and instead of me reading them to them, they can read their own. And I think that's a big impact subconsciously, as well as you know, what it does for the rest of the team. So that's a great idea too. Jerry Tussle, JT in the house, tell everybody around the galaxy where they can find you.
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm actually going through a branding change, both on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Some exciting changes coming up. And topdogbusinesscoaching.com.
Well, yeah, I mean, hey, everybody reach out to Jerry. I mean, he's a legend. He's a good dude. He's on, straight shooter, and he's a hell of a coach. And we've had crazy conversations over these last 4 or 5 years. And it's like every time we talk, it's like we just talked yesterday. And that's what I love and respect about Jerry. He's one of my BFFs. And he's really, he's authentic. And I think that's what happens when you find people in your life that are similar, that are real and authentic. You attract the same people in your life. And it's like anything. If you're again, no disrespect, if you're an asshole and you're a loser, you're probably attracting assholes and losers. But when you're authentic and you're just going on the path, and when you want to attract different people in your life, you attract people that are similar to you.
Yeah.
So if you want to get started on taking these chances, or taking risk in your life to try and make your life better, hang out with different people. And Jerry mentioned earlier, hire a coach. Jerry's one of the most successful people I know, and he's so smart and so honest and so trustworthy and just so real. And I think that's one thing with, and I can guarantee all your clients say the same thing, is that you're just real. If you don't know, you don't know. It's almost like you're working together one-on-one, and you're almost both trying to get better, And I think that's the beautiful thing of working with Jerry one-on-one. So make sure you reach out to him, find him everywhere. This show should be out soon. If you got any questions for me, like always, email me, jeremy@jeremytodd.com. Share those stories. I love hearing them. Find me on iTunes. Leave us a review. It allows other people to find the show. Find my YouTube channel. I think I have 218 subscribers. I still have missed my goal of 1,000 by last July. You were close, but we will get there soon. Find me on Facebook, all that other good stuff. Find me everywhere. You are the best. I say it in every single episode. You've got greatness within. Like always, this is the positive side.